I grew up in a country that has no freedoms whatsoever, that the government has always tried to control you, try to control the way you think, try to control the way you speak, try to control the way you even dream. And the radical Islamists and the political Islamists like Ilhan Omar, like CARE, like MAS, and like many others are trying to learn that line. So if you say anything is Islamophobe.
Hi, and welcome all to the Ellie Fishman podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Fishman. In today's episode, we'll be discussing radical Islam with Dalia Al-Aqidi. She was born in Iraq and fled the Saddam Hussein regime and spent the rest of her life fighting radical Islam. Dalia is running to represent Minnesota's 5th congressional district against the current Congresswoman, Ilhan Omar. If you haven't yet, go ahead and rate the podcast and subscribe to the podcast. It helps the algorithm spread the podcast to a larger audience. Thank you for joining and enjoy the episode. You're listening to the Ellie Fishman podcast. Okay, so welcome and thank you for making the time. You have a really remarkable and interesting story to tell, a personal story of how you got to where you are today. Can you please start with telling us about your personal journey?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I was born in the Middle East. I was born in Iraq. I've lived for a while under the oppression, under a dictatorship, where I grew up in a country that has no freedoms whatsoever, that the government has always tried to control you, try to control the way you think, try to control the way you speak, try to control the way you even dream. So my family and I, when we fled Iraq back in 1988, we became very active. We, as in my late mother and myself, very active with the Iraqi opposition to stand against the oppression of Saddam Hussein and the oppression of the Ba'ath Party. I worked in Saudi Arabia with the Iraqi opposition. And why Saudi Arabia? Because of this location that is close to Iraq, to establish a radio station, Radio of Free Iraq. So by the age of 20, Saddam Hussein's Ba'ath court issued a death sentence against me and my mother because we stood against the brutality of that regime. Back in Saudi Arabia, I met Chris Stevens. Chris Stevens, he was the U.S. ambassador who was killed, assassinated by the radical terrorists in Benghazi. Chris and I became very good friends, and he convinced me that my place is in the United States, that I should move to the United States. And he made it possible for me and my family to move. So I did move back in 1993. I was a journalist, so I started right away working as a journalist. I worked with many media outlets. So for the past 30-something years, I've been covering radical Islamism, political Islamism, terrorism, not only in the United States, but in Europe and in the Middle East. And I was reporting from all over the world. So deep inside me, I was fighting against terrorism. I was fighting against the radical ideology of political Islamism because I'm a Muslim, and I'm still a Muslim. Muslim is a faith. So about 7 or 8 years ago, I decided to move to Minnesota. Minneapolis is a wonderful, wonderful city, or it used to be. Um, when in 2018, I was covering the United Nations General Assembly, and of course, I was following what the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who, by the way, he was the godfather of the Muslim Brotherhood. So I saw him be meeting with the director of CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations, and he had a young Somali lady meeting the Turkish president. So I was curious, why would a woman, a young woman, would meet with the Turkish president from the Midwest? So after not too long, she got elected to Congress, and I started following her votes, what she was doing, and what she was saying in Congress, and all her positions aligned with the Muslim Brotherhood, aligned with the ideology that I left behind. So I started asking her for an interview until all my emails started bouncing back. So I said, you know what? I'm going to Minneapolis. I'm going to Minnesota and see who these people are and what made her strong. So I started coming here back and forth, and I fell in love with the city, and I decided to move.
Very interesting. Before we go into the philosophy of radical Islam and Ilhan Omar, you said that you fled Iraq.
Correct.
When people leave a country, they don't flee a country or they don't escape a country. Why did you use that word of fleeing Iraq?
Because back then, during the Saddam era, Iraqi citizens were not allowed to leave the country, were not allowed to travel unless they asked for a permission from the government. So if a family, my mom, my late mother, she's well known. She is considered a pioneer in Iraqi modern theater. So I grew up in a very modern, tolerant family, all into arts and theater. So when we travel, the government would not give me a permit to travel if mom is traveling, and vice versa. So they know that if a family member goes for like work, let's say, that person would go alone without the family.
So they wouldn't.
So they
would
have to come. Absolutely.
Okay.
But it happened. We were so lucky that my mom had some work engagement in Egypt, and I had work engagement. I was going to attend a theater festival in Tunisia at the same time. For whatever reason, they gave us separately the permit to leave at the same time. So fleeing, because I went to Tunisia, I participated in the festival, and I left the delegation, and I took a flight in the middle of the night and left to Lebanon back then, because as an Iraqi, I couldn't go anywhere but Lebanon. So I met with my mom, and that's how we fled. That's why I use fleeing the country.
What would happen if you just decided to go back to Iraq at that time?
Would get killed. Basically, I would get.
Yeah.
It's execution
for fleeing the country, just for going out of the country. Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. And by the way, if I go now to Iraq, I'll be executed as well.
Why?
Because in 2000, after October 7th, I went to Israel 3 weeks after October 7th to see with my own eyes what the terrorist group Hamas has committed, and to show my support as a Muslim American, as from Arab origins, that I feel their pain, that I was a target. I, not as personally, but we moderate Muslims, that we strive for peace, we are the target of radical Islamism as well. So this, even now in Iraqi law, it's treason. So I'll be executed either or. But during Saddam and right now as well.
How old were you when you fled Iraq?
I was born in 1968, so I was 20 when I left.
At 20 when you left. So you have your foundation of your life. You grew up in Iraq. Your memories of childhood is in Iraq.
It's a bit complicated. Let me. I was
Okay.
born in Iraq, but I grew up in a Mennonite boarding school in Lebanon. Part of my family used to live in Lebanon, and then, but I moved back with my family to Iraq from 1979 to 1988, so 9 years. But my teenage years were in Iraq, so I totally remember how it is to be under a dictatorship, under socialist agenda, under oppression. This is when my political, even though I was young, but this is when my political identity is starting to develop.
The way Americans view Iraq in general, is there any misconception the way, as you come from there, you're also an American for the past many years. Do you see any misconceptions of the way Americans generally view Iraq?
I think the misconception is not only about Iraq, it's like about the people from the Middle East, because we are not one, we don't have one identity. We have different identities. We have different religions. We have different sectors in the religion. We have different type of educations. We have different classes, even from one country to another. Like somebody from Egypt could not probably not relate to someone from Yemen or to someone from Morocco or Tunisia. We have cultural differences. However, in the majority of Middle Eastern, they try to have one identity that, yeah, we are Arabs. But nowadays it's so different. Americans look at any Arab woman and think of someone like Ilhan Omar, or think of someone, a woman with hijab. We're not all Muslim women wear hijab. Not all Muslim women uh, uh, think the same. On the contrary, there are millions like me. I don't wear hijab. I keep my faith between me and my creator. I don't politicize my faith, because my faith is something very personal, either yours. But my fight against radical and political Islamism has nothing to do with faith. And that's what people in America in general, and in Europe as well, cannot comprehend very well, because the radical political um, operatives, I call them, or the tools within the political arena, they try to blur the line between being a Muslim and being an Islamist, and that's a long way for us
Right.
to explain to Americans that no, Muslims aren't Islamists.
And
And
I
it's
really want
okay.
to hear about that. I really want to hear about that soon, because that is very important and very interesting for a regular American that doesn't really know this. They don't make that difference. I want to get there, but before we move on, how did Iraqis generally speak about Israel and Jewish people?
We were taught since we were kids that Israel is the devil, and the Jews are the worst people on this planet, and we have to stand against them, and we have to hate them, and we have to fight them, and we need to destroy Israel, and all this. The same chants and the same slogans that we've been seeing since October 7th in our streets in the United States. Death to America, death to Israel. But let me tell you a
Yeah.
funny story. One time I was traveling, I don't remember from where, I was like 16, 17. So I had a layover somewhere, I think It was in Athens, somewhere in Europe. So I was sitting and having um, a meal, waiting for my connection flight. And then I met a really nice young guy. So we started talking and about about whatever. I don't even remember until I asked him where he was from, and he told me, "Oh, he's from Israel." So we laughed about it, and I was like, "You know what? I could be killed. I'm not supposed to talk to you because you're the devil." And we laughed so much about it. And he at this young age, he told me, well, I had a crush on him to start with. So, but we started talking, and we found out that we're just the same. We have the same ambitions. We have same hopes, and we both want peace. So that was what my first encounter with an Israeli and a Jewish person. And of course, when I came to the United States, and don't forget, Iraq has had a large Jewish community back in the 40s and 30s. Well, the first Iraqi after the independence of Iraq in the 1920s from Britain, the first I think finance minister was a Jew. So the culture is not different. It's
Right.
just how we are fed by
Exactly.
the political party, by the government.
I would like to invite you if you ever want to come over to Brooklyn. I live in an Orthodox Jewish community. I'll show you around, and I think we have much more in common than the regular Americans think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will be honored. When I went to Israel, I went with a friend of mine. Uh, he studied there in the university, but his Hebrew wasn't that good, or my Arabic was far more better. People spoke Arabic to me. I was worried, honestly, when I went there, especially after October 7th. That was my first time. I was worried, like, how would people react to me? Yes, I am an American, but I'm a Muslim. I'm from an Arab origin. On the contrary, I was so welcomed. I spoke Arabic with the majority of people. We went down south to the kibbutz. We went up north to Dalia to Carmel, for instance. I got a call from a federal judge in Jerusalem, um, and he asked for a meeting. So I went there. I was worried, like, why would he want to meet me? And it turned out that his origins were from Iraq, and his parents led the country way before he was born. And we had a great conversation. I've met with Iraqi Jews there. Um, we are not different. We
Right.
should not hate each other. We should. We're alike. We
Correct.
shouldn't hate each other.
And you're an example of how the media and the false narrative that we have to be divided. And you also grew up listening to a lot of these lies that are spread about Jews and Israel. And you were nervous before you went to Israel because that's what you heard. But when you went there, you saw a different story completely. And that's what Jews have to go through all the time. Stories are just made up, just fabricated out of thin air. But when people actually see the reality, it's not that way. And I think you experienced a very frustrating foundation of anti-Semitism, which is just fabricated nonsense when you actually get to see the reality.
You know, I've been called after I came. It was like after, because my trip was very publicized. I wanted to make sure that I would pass my message through videos and interviews, and I got threats and you name it. Being called Mossad, being called an agent for so and so, and anti Palestinians. People don't understand that because I stand against Hamas, I stand against the Muslim Brotherhood, I stand against terrorism. Does it mean that I'm against the innocent Palestinians that were been held hostage for years on years? And what happened to Gaza? It's because of the doing of the Muslim Brotherhood. It's because of Hamas. We know exactly how these groups operate. And they managed to succeed in flipping the general views that, oh, Israel is killing everybody. Nobody wants anybody to kill. I feel for the innocent Palestinians. I feel for the kids. But what is the alternative? To keep Hamas in power, to keep the terrorists in power? This should stop. And I will always say it. Chapeau back to Israel, because Israel has killed more terrorists than the whole world combined. That's what we need. It has nothing to do with Netanyahu or any other government. The Israeli government is the business of the Israeli people. For me, it's none of my business who's in power. For me, this is a country that was brutally attacked by a terrorist group. Brutally, and I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen the banner of ISIS in the kibbutz. I've seen the bloods. I've seen how these terrorists were hunting kids and mothers and old people from room to a room to this safe room. I've seen the bullets on the doors of these safe rooms. I've seen it all. I still can smell the blood. That's why I stood against anything that the Muslim Brotherhood or Hamas has done, and I will always do, because this is a for me it's a holy fight. Because for me, I was the number one. I and people like me, the moderate Muslims, the Muslims that would keep their faith personal and treat everybody equally without being fed that disgusting, evil narrative. This is my fight, and there are so many like me. The only difference, we don't hear that much from others, because the terrorists and these groups are very good in bullying others. So people sometimes they're scared to speak up.
You're so important in this fight because you could distinguish between the radical Islam and regular Muslims. I have a question regarding the philosophy in the Muslim world when you grew up in Iraq. You said they villainized the Jew, they villainized Israel, and Israel sort of like a villain. But how could you do that to a people that have never seen Israel? Their quality of life is not connected to Israel at all, right? So don't people think for themselves, like, one second, I live in Iraq, miles away from Israel. Israel can't do anything to me. And my life situation, my influence around me has nothing to do with Israel. Well, don't they stop and think of, like, why am I taught to hate people that have no connection to me at all?
It's nationalism that we are the Middle East, we are the Arabs, and we are the Muslims. Forgetting that the Middle East, and forgetting that Arabs are not just Muslims. That's the thing. But that's what when you have dictatorships, that's when you have oppression. And again, I'll take you back to the government should tell you what to think and how to think. I remember when Anwar Sadat was assassinated. I was young, and I was watching the news, and people in the Middle East were cheering, "Oh, because he's the traitor." And my grandma, I asked her, "Why was Anwar Sadat killed, and why people are happy?" And she told me, Anwar Sadat was killed because he had a vision. And and that's when I started reading about Sadat, and he's one of my heroes because he saw what's happening. And so the only way to peace is to live together, to to look over our differences, regardless of what they are, because at the end we're all human beings. So, but the thing is, and I'll go back to how the conception of Islamists and why and Muslims and why our voices are not reaching others, because voices like mine have been muted for the longest time, even in a democracy, even in the West, where freedom flourishes. And I'll tell you why. Because uh, the Islamists and the political Islamism, they tend to mute our voices because we tell the truth.
How do they do that in
Uh,
America, in the United States?
Look at the mainstream media. How many like my voice have you seen on CNN or ABC or CNBC? Could you tell me that's when they want to talk to a Muslim woman, they'll bring a Muslim woman from care with a hijab, thinking that we all think the same. Our voices are not there. I'm always on Fox News, and I do others. The right, if we call it the right media, but mainstream media would never. I'm a published writer. I can never publish in any mainstream platform because my voice doesn't fall into that narrative. The most important thing to for Americans to understand is the political Islamism is not a theological position at all. It is a geopolitical project that seeks to impose an ideological agenda um, at odds with everything that America is about, with freedom, with democracy, with free expression, and that's the narrative that the radicals don't want us
Right,
to talk about.
right. There's something that you said a while back that resonated with me. You know, I grew up hearing that the adults in the room that it's important to appreciate the United States and the freedom of religion and the Constitution as Jews, because that's what gives us the ability to live as and practice Judaism as we love to do. That means that we appreciate the country that we live in, and we're not trying to change the country we live in. I heard that from you as well before, and it resonated with me. You spoke about how you're Muslim, but you're not imposing that on anybody else. My question is, who are these? Let's move on to the radical Muslims, right? What is the threat of radical Muslims in the United States as of now? And what is radical? What would you call radical Islam?
Radical political Islam. There is the terrorist, the radical ideology of the jihadists. We've all seen it all over the world. It's bloody, it's scary, and basically the whole world should stand against it. Like what we're seeing in Nigeria, for instance, right now, with Christians being slaughtered. Like what we saw in Iraq in 2014 when ISIS entered the city of Mosul and started persecuting Christians, which, by the
What is
way,
their ideology? Why are they doing all this bloodshed? Or why are they killing so much?
oh, because the world is much better without Christians, without Jews, without moderate Muslims, if you're either with us or against us. This is a different an ideology. Talking about the political the radical political ideology, this is the danger, or this is the threat that we're seeing right now through NGOs and through organizations that are playing the role of the Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood is a very, very dangerous ideology. Unlike ISIS, ISIS wanted to build a country, a caliphate, an area. This is theirs. Muslim Brotherhood does not want to create a state. No, they want to infiltrate all the systems. And they do it very well. They're well organized. They're well smart, and they planned it a long time ago. They're not in a hurry, but that's what we're seeing now. You're in New York. Mamadani is one of them. Mamadani is a radical political Islamist.
Very good. You brought up Mamdani. It's a good example. Could you explain how how you have the experience and you can smell these people from a mile away because you grew up with them, right? So you can define if somebody is has roots to radical Islam, or somebody is just a Muslim person living in America, right? Where can you connect the dots to say that Mamdani comes from the radical roots?
There is a very dangerous alliance between the political Islamism and socialism in the United States and in the West in general, because they have the same views. They have the same aims. However, they might not agree on theological ideologies. However, they have the same aim to minimize the capitalism, that we should all go back and live and under a government, that we should sit and wait for the government to give us everything, to give us food, to give us money, to give us and slowly but surely would take our freedoms away from us. Yesterday, or the day before yesterday, Governor Abbott, for the first time in the United States, succeeded in designating the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE as a terrorist organization. Who stood against it? Ilhan Omar, a U.S. lawmaker, publicly now is supporting a terrorist group. She was calling it, that's the line that I was talking about. It's anti-Muslims. She called him a bigot because he decided to say, he dared to say that the Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist group. And there are many other organizations, by the way. We are allowed to question these organizations. We are allowed to question what their goals are. Let me tell you, after October 7th, a city council in Minneapolis, it is basically is a bunch of socialists from the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, issued a resolution to demand a ceasefire in Gaza. This is a city council in a small city in the Midwest. The calling of genocide. These people, or these groups, they managed to move the streets, to move the narrative by supporting from the river to the sea, from supporting all these the idea of being in charge. And that's why we see many others like Ilhan Omar, like Mamdani, and like many others that they're using And they're not that smart, by the way, because they've been groomed by the Council on American Islamic Relations. And why? Because having somebody like Ilhan Omar in Congress would benefit the agenda, not only in the United States, but worldwide. We're talking about US lawmakers. We're talking about politicians. We're talking about big business uh, uh, has being dealt business deals has been dealt to benefit the radicals in uh, in the region or worldwide.
Right.
That's why it's very very dangerous.
I would assume that the majority of Muslims coming from other countries to the United States is because they want a better life for their family, want a better life for themselves. And as long as you give them that freedom to live as Muslims, they're going to be okay. I think that what you're saying is that there are outside influences that are signaling to these Muslims living in the United States to advance their agendas, right? That is extreme. So, number one, who are these actors that are grouping these people together and turning them against our interests? Who are these outside actors, if you can name them? And second of all, how could we educate the Muslim community that they're being used by extremists outside of the United States for different interests?
Look, let me give you an example. I've been calling CARE and other nonprofit organizations all over the United States. It starts like this. When I come to you as a Muslim and say, remember the ban on the Trump ban on certain countries? They started calling it a Muslim ban. By the way, that ban was implemented by Barack Obama to start with, but nobody talked about it. So he continued that ban. The narrative from these organizations would speak out and tell Muslims that this ban targets you as a Muslim, that this ban wants to uh, uh, stop the Muslims from coming because we are getting powerful. So every action, the government, or and I'm not talking about Trump or any other government, that was just an example. So every action, when somebody speaks about radical Islamism, when somebody speaks about Hamas, their talking heads would say they speak about Hamas because they're against Muslims, because they don't want Muslims, because the Jews are in charge, because the Jews are controlling the media, etc., etc. So they start from just telling them that every action you see targets you as a Muslim. So stick with us because we're the only people that can defend your rights, that can defend you. So if they divide them, if they isolate them from the majority, from the community, and just put them in a corner, and you're targeted by your Christian friends, you're targeted by your Jewish neighbors, you're targeted by the government because you're a Muslim, oh, you're an Arab, oh, you're a Pakistani. So they always keep you in fear, and they always keep you thinking that, oh my God, what if I'm getting deported? It's not about getting deported because nobody, if you're an American, you're an American. Nobody could deport you. But because you keep listening to these threats and you keep, oh, these people are telling me that I'm in danger. It means I am in danger. These people could only support me. So I have to stick to them. I have to donate to them. I have to make them more powerful because these people have my back. That's how they do it.
Right.
Divide,
So,
isolate, and control.
He's saying is that's what Ilhan Omar's popularity in the Muslim community is, because there's only two sides. There's us against them.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's why now the moderates, the centrists from both sides are sticking together. Like in 2024, I've spoken to moderate Democrats that they voted for me because they know they can see, because I've seen the consequences of what Ilhan Omar is doing. And Ilhan Omar is just an example of division, hatred. It's good to them. It's good that if everybody hates everyone, if they're divided, then it's much easier for me to mobilize people. Much easier for me when I spread the seeds of uh, fear and division. Then I'll be the savior. I'm gonna save you all. So just vote for me,
Right.
and then that's where the money comes in, and that's why you see money from uh, Islamist organizations have been given to Mamadani, Rashid Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, etc. While a moderate Muslim cannot find a Muslim organization to support them because they're too scared.
Who are the outside actors um, with the money that are influencing people like Ilhan Omar and all these other nonprofits that are causing divisiveness um, and extremism in the United States?
The number one financier to all radical Islamism and Muslim Brotherhood is Qatar. You can see the Qatari money everywhere. You can look into Washington, D.C., and see these think tanks and universities and many other organizations that are funded directly or indirectly by Qatar. The Qatari money is the most dangerous money that is floating in the United States.
What is their goal?
They support they thrive on the Muslim Brotherhood. They support the Muslim Brotherhood. That's the ideology. They support the ideology.
Supremacy.
Of course.
Because I think what's happening in the United States right now, when the Trump administration, United States, the people are becoming pretty cozied up to Qatar. Qatar is starting to seem like an American ally. And if what you're saying is true, that could be a problem.
Look, don't take my word. And I hope all your listeners to Google, look into the Qatari money that is being funneled into institutions. That's how they can influence government decisions, influence universities, influence and decision being made to influence, and that's not only during the Democrats as well. So it's not for a party. My issue with Trump, and even though I'm a Republican, and they always ask me, "Oh, do you support so and so, and do you support so and so?" And if because you're a Republican, so anything and everything Trump does, you agree with. And that's what I go back to where I came from. And I told them I fled my country because I was supposed to obey and follow a leader. I have to agree with that leader no matter what. I disagree with Trump's policy in Syria. I was stick watching Al Julani, a terrorist, at the White House. I disagree, and I have the right as an American to disagree with my leader. That doesn't make me a traitor. That doesn't make me anything. But I'm just practicing the freedom that I have now, that millions in my country, my home country, don't have.
So if you can talk directly to Trump now and give him advice on whom to partner with, who will be good Muslim majority countries that can be partners with us in the United States that would share common goals for both countries.
I'm not saying all Muslim countries. I'm not saying all Muslim. We have to look at from our perspective. As from the national security perspective, that we have to look at every government in every country and see their willingness to progress, the what they're trying to do in their countries to open up, the support for Islamism. Like, let's talk about the Abraham Accord. Um, and by the way, you keep saying Trump is cozying up with Qatar. It started with the Biden. Actually, it started with the Obama. But this is not about political parties. I'm not talking about political parties. All I'm saying is like this: there is a region that has been oppressed for the longest time, and there are several countries now are opening up. If we see the changes in Saudi Arabia today was not like the Saudi Arabia 20 years ago. We have to partner with anybody and everybody who stands against terrorism, who stands against radical Islamism. That's to keep the world safe. The Abraham Accord played a big role, and one of Trump's legacy that will stay there for in history. That he knew that it's about time to normalize the relations between these Arab countries, these Muslim countries with Israel, because what they have, and we go back to where we started, what they have in common is what they share is much bigger than the things that they disagree with. And that's not against the Palestinian people. On the contrary, if the Palestinian people want peace, they will get peace without the terrorists, without the Muslim Brotherhood, through the Abraham Accords. And from what I saw yesterday was what MBS, the Saudi crown prince, and we cannot. Saudi and Qatar are very different because Saudi is the center of the uh, Muslim Sunni world. So if the leader of the Sunni world is willing to sit and is thinking, and probably very soon they will normalize that relation with Israel, uh, other countries will follow, and then that's how peace started. That's how the Palestinian people thrive. But who would stand against it? The radicals. Because if peace is there is no place for radicals anymore. That's why these groups don't want peace.
Right. If you're elected, what bill do you think you could introduce that would help to stop the hate and division coming from outside the United States, pouring into the United States?
The most important thing, if I'm elected, and that's number one, I'm sorry, my voice, because I have a really bad flu. I want to represent everybody in my own district. And I want to, when I'm elected, and if I'm elected, I will start building bridges between the communities, between the Christian and the Muslim and the Jewish communities together. That's what we're missing in our district. That's number one. Number two, I would stand with peace everywhere. And I would push and I would support Senator Cruz and Tom Cotton efforts to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist group. I would work so hard to eliminate the influence of the radical Islamism in the United States. We're becoming like London. We're becoming like Europe, and this has to stop. I will support every effort for peace anywhere, and I will support every effort to bring people together. But the most important thing, that I will represent everyone, regardless, in my district, regardless of their faith, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their political affiliation. Being elected is being chosen to be a public servant, to serve the people, not to indoctrinate them with my own political agenda.
Right, and you seem your history and your experience what you went through, it seems that you're the right person for the job.
I hope so.
Going back to how you will influence your district and American policy, there has been a dramatic shift in how the young Americans see Israel. How would you talk to the young Americans that don't see the need, don't see Israel not just as somebody that does good, but as the enemy? How would you talk to those young American students?
To be brief, because I only have few minutes left. To be
No problem.
brief, as uh, I would highlight the importance of having the United States as the leader of the free world, which means that we have our allies and we have to award or reward our allies in the region. Part of the our national security depends on our allies in several regions around the world, and without our allies we cannot maintain our security, our national security in our country. Israel is one of the U.S. biggest allies and will always be a biggest ally, and we have many other countries, and we have to form these allies. But there is a difference between having Israel as food, because the majority of people, well, let me tell you, the majority of people have the misconception of like, oh, we do everything that Israel tells us to do. Uh, there's a difference between Israel. Put Israel on 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 the left and put the Jewish communities on the right. There's a difference when we're talking about anti-Semitism. We're not talking about anti-Israel. People might not like Israel for whatever reason, but that doesn't give them the right to be anti-Semitism. That doesn't give them the right to attack the Jewish students on college campuses. That doesn't give them the right to attack Jewish neighbors just because they're Jews. So these are
Correct.
two totally different topics.
I agree.
And
But do you see that the majority, a lot of people that are actually using this distinction are actually doing it to cover up anti-Semitism?
of course, that Jewish hatred is everywhere. The Jewish hatred is everywhere, and that's what they're being fed. That Omar said it without being ashamed. It's all about the Benjamin. The misconception. We in the United States, we have the freedom of religions. You, I, my neighbor should have the right to practice any faith or not, no faith at all. We shouldn't be targeted because of our faith. And the radical Islamists and the political Islamists like Ilhan Omar, like CARE, like MAS, and like many others are trying to learn that line. So if you say anything is Islamophobe, the biggest mistake that we're doing is every time we talk about anti-Semitism, we have to link it to Islamophobia. That term was invented by the Muslim Brotherhood to silence people from criticizing a very dangerous political ideology.
Okay, so before we close up, I would like to hear a fun fact about you, and also then your closing pitch.
Oh, fun fact about me, that I love superhero movies. I'm a huge fan of Marvel, and my favorite is Iron Man. I will always watch it. Uh, my closing pitch is that we're all human beings, and we all should work together for peace. We shouldn't demonize each other. We shouldn't hate each other based on our backgrounds, and we shouldn't politicize our faith. Identity politics is killing us, and we have to fight it. I don't mind. I will ask people to go to daliaforcongress.org and send me emails and send me questions, because I'm not going to stop. If you disagree with me, it's okay. But it's time for us to bring back dialogue. It's time for us to discuss our ideas discuss our policies. Let's all work together to make the future brighter for our kids. And that doesn't happen with wars and with accusations. No, it happens with dialogue. It's okay to disagree, but it's not okay to hate each other.
Beautiful. That is beautiful, and you summed it up to exactly what your candidacy is. And I hope to keep in touch with you. If you ever want to come to Brooklyn, again, invitation. I'll show you around to the right people, the right places. And I wish you lots of luck on your upcoming campaign.
Thank you so much. Remember this. I will come and look for you for a Shabbat dinner.
No problem. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Okay. Keep in
Bye bye.
touch.